Hello everyone, welcome back to Coach Greg Sports. Today is Friday, so we're going to be looking at all the other matchups for the week. Last night we obviously had the Thursday night football game with the Bears and the Buccaneers. It was kind of the way I expected this game to go. I expected probably more like a 17-13 type of game. Ended up being 20-19. Bears came out on top. There was a lot of interesting play calling by Matt Nagy in this one. It wasn't the prettiest game in the world, honestly. Foles was all right. You probably, like I said, you weren't going to be starting him anyways. Tom Brady was a guy like I thought you could start in this one, but he was a guy that didn't hurt you, but he's definitely not winning you the week. Ronald Jones was over 100 yards again in this one, so he helped you if you played him. David Montgomery did end up having a touchdown, a couple catches too, so he would have been fine if you did start him. And then the wide receivers, Allen Robinson, Mike Evans, those were guys you were starting anyways, and they did enough to help you. If you started Ryan Succop, congratulations to you. He made a couple field goals as well. Not too much else to say about that game, honestly. But before we get started, we can give a couple shout-outs. Shout-outs to Nathan K. They commented on a couple different videos. Appreciate it from you. And then Goat Nation, who's been asking a couple questions here and there as well. I hope you guys all enjoyed them. I try to respond to everybody that does comment. And I'm glad to see that you guys are enjoying these videos. But with that being said, we'll get started. These are going to be the other 14 matchups for this week. Please keep in mind some of these games may be in question due to teams testing positive. I'll just be doing my start sits, but as we hear more news in the coming days, that may change things as well. Okay, so we'll start out with the Texans and the Jaguars. On the Texans side, we got Deshaun Watson. We're going to start him this week. Jaguars aren't too great on defense. David Johnson and Duke Johnson. I'm probably sitting both these guys, honestly. David Johnson was my sit of the week in our Podtastic Network Start Sit article. I'm not too sure how they're going to use these running backs now that Bill O'Brien is gone. Honestly, I think it's probably going to be a 60-40 timeshare, and I haven't been too impressed with David Johnson overall. I think Duke Johnson's the better player at this point in their respective careers. Will Fuller, you can start in this one. Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb are going to sit until we see more from them, see how they're going to use this offense going forward. And then Darren Fells, Jordan Akins are sits. You shouldn't need to play them at tight end. Texans defense is a sit. I'm not going to go too much into the kickers this week. Most of them are pretty much the same as I've been talking about. So their names are up there. If I have anything else to say about them, I will. And then on the Jaguars side, Gardner Minshew, you can start him. He's streamable this week against the poor Texans defense. James Robinson is a good start here as well. Chris Thompson's going to be a sit. DJ Chark is a start. Keelan Cole, Laviska Shenault, these are both sits for me, unless you really need a wide receiver. And then Tyler Eifert's a sit. Jaguars defense, like I said, is not too great, so they're a sit. And then we got Steven Hauschka or Eldrick Rojas. Rojas did the kicking last weekend, but I know they brought Hauschka in as well. So it'll be interesting to see who actually ends up kicking, but you don't want to grab either of these guys because we don't really know who it's going to be at this point. And then we move over to the Bengals and the Ravens. So we'll start on the Bengals side. We got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is somebody you're probably going to want to sit against the Ravens. The Ravens have a pretty good defense overall. Joe Mixon, you're going to be starting him based on where you picked him. He had a great week last week. Just tamper your expectations for him against this Ravens defense. Tyler Boyd's a start for me. AJ Green and T. Higgins are both sits. Drew Sample is going to be a sit until he shows us more. Bengals defense is a sit. And then we'll move over to the Ravens side. We got Lamar Jackson. He's a start. Monitor his situation as well. His knee has been hurt in practice, I believe it was, this week. So he's questionable for the game. So if he doesn't play, just make sure you have a pivot option available to you. Then we got Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. A trio of running backs, essentially. Nobody's really stood out in the pack. If you really need to start like Mark Ingram this week, you would probably do it against the Bengals defense because their defense isn't the greatest against the run. But if you don't need to, I wouldn't recommend starting any of these running backs at this point. To me, Gus Edwards actually looked like the best back so far. So we'll just have to monitor that situation as it moves forward. Then Hollywood Brown, you can start him in this matchup. He's a little risky here. He's kind of boom bust. Just depends on how much they run the ball and everything. Andrews is the same way, but you're going to start him just based on where you drafted him. Ravens defense, you can start in this one. Justin Tucker's must start anyways. Then we got the Panthers and the Falcons. We got Teddy Bridgewater. He's a streamable quarterback option this week against this poor Falcons defense. Then Mike Davis, you can start this week. He's shown us enough, especially if you need a running back. And then we got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. I think you can start both these guys pretty confidently this week. Like I said, Atlanta's very bad against the pass. Curtis Samuel, I'm going to sit. Ian Thomas is a sit for me unless you need a streaming tight end and you're in a deep league. We saw what Robert Tonyan did do to the Falcons, so there is a chance that he has some value in this game, but I wouldn't expect too much from him. Panthers defense is more like a streamer or DFS option than anything, so I'm going to be sitting them. Then on the Falcons side, Matt Ryan was my sit of the week, but if you don't have a better option, you can still play him. I just don't expect him to do too much, especially if Julio misses. And then if Calvin Ridley's banged up or doesn't play as well. So Todd Gurley is startable in this matchup. Panthers aren't very good against the run. Julio Jones, he's probably going to be a sit. I don't expect him to play this week. Calvin Ridley, you start him if he plays. If he doesn't play, you obviously sit him. Russell Gage, he's a start if both these guys misses. He's probably a start also if just Julio misses, just depending on your league and your roster setup. Then we got Hayden Hurst. I'm sitting him until I see more from him. Atlanta's defense is obviously a sit. Monitor their kicker situation with Young Hoku and Elliott Fry. I expect Fry to be the kicker once again this week, so you're not going to be playing him regardless. Raiders and Chiefs. So we got Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a streaming quarterback for me this week. He's probably better in 2 quarterback or super flex leagues. The Chiefs have been decent against the pass, but some of their numbers are a little skewed after that New England game. Then Josh Jacobs, obviously where you drafted him, you're going to be starting him. Hunter Renfrow could be a sneaky play in this game, especially if Ruggs and Edwards miss again. So he could be a start if you need him. Nelson Aguilar is going to be a sit. I know he had a nice little game last week, but you can't expect too much from him. And Darren Waller is going to be a start. Raiders defense is a sit. Chiefs side, we got Patrick Mahomes, obvious start here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a good start here as well. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce are both starts. Pretty obvious, every week starts. Sammy Watkins and McCole Hardman. You could probably start these guys if you need a wide receiver, if you're real desperate. If you got guys in other games that you think might not play because of all the positive tests around the league, they're not bad fill-in guys. But if you don't need them, I wouldn't play them. And Chiefs defense, you could play in this one. It's probably not the worst matchup in the world for them. Then we'll move over to the Jets and the Cardinals. The biggest news today is the Jets have a presumed positive test, and they have sent their coaches and players back home, essentially. And that happened probably about an hour ago or so. So we'll have to see if that affects this game at all. See if they still play on Sunday. Maybe they push it back to Monday or Tuesday. But it's definitely something worth monitoring. There's not too many guys on the Jets side that this affects. Joe Flacco's stepping in this week for Sam Darnold, who has an injured shoulder. You're not going to start him anyways. Le'Veon Bell and Frank Gore, they're probably sits unless you need Le'Veon Bell as a running back 2 flex play if your team really needs one of those options. Crowder, I would start. I think he's a safe Jeff White's receiver. Jeff Smith, looks like Brashard Perriman's going to be out again. Smith had a nice first game. And if you were in a really deep league and desperate at wide receiver, you could play him. But otherwise, he's a sit. Herndon's a sit. Jets defense is a sit. And then on the Cardinals side, this would be the one that's affected a little bit more. Kyler Murray's a start unless this game doesn't happen. So these are all going to be unless this game doesn't happen. Then Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds. Drake hasn't been good this year. Edmonds is looking better than him. You could still probably start Drake if you need to. But if you have a better option available, obviously go with your better option at this point. Edmonds is probably somebody you could start in a pinch if you need to. Then we got DeAndre Hopkins as a start. Fitzgerald and Kirk, Dan Arnold, they're all sits. Cardinals defense you can actually stream this week and not be too bad off. Steelers and Eagles. So on the Steelers side, we got Ben Roethlisberger. You can start him this week unless you have a better option. James Conner is obvious start for me in this one. I know the Eagles defense is decent against the run, but he should still see enough volume to matter. Juju and Deontay Johnson are both starts for me in this one. It'd be interesting to see who Darius Slay covers in this matchup as well. Eric Ebron is actually my start of the week. He is going against the Eagles defense that's been awful against tight ends. They lost one of their linebackers, TJ Edwards. So it's even better matchup for him. Steelers have been looking to get him more involved as well. Steelers defense you can start. Carson Wentz has been known to throw an interception or two this year, so it's definitely a good matchup for them, and they are one of the best defenses in all of football. Carson Wentz is a sit, just going back to the point we talked about. Miles Sanders, he's more like a running back 2 or a flex play for me this week. Just depends on your roster. If you're able to sit him, you can sit him and not feel too bad about it, but if you have to start him, that's fine by me as well. Boston Scott is a sit for me this week. They might need to use him a little bit in the passing game. I figured they were going to do it a little bit more last game, but it didn't really turn out that way. Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey. I don't know if these guys are going to play at all, honestly. It doesn't look positive for Jeffrey. He was practicing some. Now he's got an illness, so he's a sit anyways. You got to wait a couple games to see what he does. Deshaun Jackson, you can't risk him. He's just a sit. Greg Ward has some. You could start him if everybody else misses once again, like last week. Zach Ertz is still a start, but he's been struggling this year. So hopefully this is a matchup that favors him. And then the Eagles defense is going to be a sit. Then we'll move over to the Rams and the Washington football team. So on the Rams side, there's Jared Goff. You could stream him if you need to. It's not the greatest matchup in the world, honestly. So you should probably have better options available to you. And then we got Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers look like he's going to be back as well this week. You're probably going to sit all these guys. If you need to play one, you can probably play Henderson. He's looked the best so far. But even then, Malcolm Brown did outsnap him last week. So it'll be interesting to see how they use these running backs. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, you can probably start both these guys. Woods, you could probably pivot from if you need to, and you have better options available to you. But if you don't, obviously you're going to start both these guys. I like Tyler Higbee this week. I think he's a low-end tight end 1. Should be pretty safe against the Washington's defense. And then the Rams defense is a pretty good stream-worthy candidate in this one. On the Washington football team side, we got Kyle Allen. You're not going to start him this week unless you're completely desperate in like a 2-quarterback or superflex league. Then we got Antonio Gibson. You can start him in this matchup. Feel pretty all right. McLaurin's going to be a start as well. Dontrell Inman steps up to the number 2 wide receiver now that Steven Sims is on IR. Inman has had a couple nice games, but he's a sit at this point until we see more from him. Logan Thomas is also a sit until we see more from him. He's played a lot, but his volume's kind of been going down. We'll have to see how he gels with Kyle Allen in this one. Washington's defense is going to be a sit as well. Then we'll move over to the 49ers and the Dolphins. So we got Jimmy Garoppolo. He's been practicing. Looks like he might play this week. He's going to be a sit. We just got to make sure he's healthy, see how he is. I know it's a decent matchup, but until we know more, if we can't trust him. Raheem Mostert looks like he's going to be back. You can start him if you need to. If you don't need to start him, then maybe wait a week. McKinnon, you could still start in like PPR formats. Should be all right there. 49ers wide receivers. So you got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. If you guys don't have better options, I guess you can start these guys. I'd really tamper expectations for Deebo, though. He only played on like 34% of snaps last week. And even if he plays on like 50% this week, he's still working his way into the right direction. So until we see him playing closer to 70% or more, I'd avoid starting him at this point. George Kittle's an obvious must start. 49ers defense is a fair start as well. Fitzpatrick's going to be a sit this week. Myles Gaskin is more like a flex play, if anything, in like a PPR league. You can play him if you need to, but if you don't need to, then obviously you're going to sit him. Devontae Parker is fine to start in this one. Preston Williams, Isaiah Ford, they're kind of like competing for wide receiver 2 snaps at this point. I'm going to sit both of them until one of them really stands out. Gesicki, this is not a good matchup for him at all. He's my tight end set of the week, so he's going to be a sit here as well. Dolphins defense is going to be a sit if Jimmy Garoppolo plays. If Nick Mullins would play for some reason, you could probably stream the Dolphins defense. Just don't expect too much from them, though. Then we got the Cowboys and the Giants. So this is either going to be a shootout or the Giants are going to get slaughtered pretty much in this game. So Dak Prescott, you're going to start. He's been off to an awesome pace so far this year. And then Ezekiel Elliott's a start. Amari Cooper is a start. I think you pretty much can start all these Dallas wide receivers at this point. And Dalton Schultz is a start as well. Just be aware if they get ahead early, maybe they'll run the ball later on in the game. Cowboys defense is somebody I like to stream this week. I know their defense is bad, but the Giants have Daniel Jones, Mr. Turnover Machine himself. Then we got Daniel Jones. He's going to be an obvious sit. Then you got the Giants running backs. If you really need to start Devontae Freeman in a PPR format, he might be all right here. But I just don't expect too much from him. The other guys are going to be sits. Darius Slayton, I would start in this matchup. It is a favorable matchup. If he gets the targets, he's definitely going to produce. Golden Tate is a start unless he gets suspended. Even if you're playing like a PPR format, if you need a wide receiver, you can start him. Otherwise, you just sit him. Then Evan Ingram, as much as I don't like him, this is a decent matchup for him, and I think they're going to need to throw the ball down to him and Tate quite a bit. So he is a start for me. Giants defense is an obvious sit. Then we got Seahawks and the Vikings. So with Russell Wilson, you're starting him every week. Chris Carson's a start. Carlos Hyde's going to be a sit. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week. I know he did have that shoulder injury last week. He's one of the few guys I didn't check into before I made this video. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are starts. Greg Olson's going to be a sit. Seahawks defense is going to be a sit as well. Kirk Cousins is a startable streaming option this week against Seattle's poor defense. So you can start him if you need a quarterback. Dalvin Cook is going to be a start as well. Alexander Madison's a sit. Thielen and Jefferson are both starts. Obviously, Seattle's defense is not very scary at this point. Then we got Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith. They barely done anything at all this year, so you're going to sit both of them. Vikings defense is obviously a sit as well. Then we got the Patriots and the Broncos. On the Patriots side, you got Cam Newton, Brian Hoyer, or Jarrett Stidham. Not sure who they're going to end up starting at quarterback. Since the game did get pushed back, there is a chance that Cam Newton could play. I wouldn't expect it, so you're not going to be starting any of these quarterbacks. Patriots running backs, you can start James White in a PPR format. I think he'll be all right. You could start Damon Harris probably in a standard format if you're a running back needy team. Just don't expect too much out of these guys, honestly. Broncos aren't too good against the pass. I don't know how much the Patriots are actually going to pass in this game. But my favorite Patriots wide receiver this week might actually be Damiere Byrd. If Brian Hoyer starts, he was looking to him early and often. Julian Edelman hasn't looked too great the last couple of games. So we'll just have to see how this all plays out for the Patriots wide receiver core. N'Keal Harry's kind of like a borderline guy if you really need somebody. Then Ryan Izzo's a sit. Patriots defense you can start. Broncos, it looks like Drew Lock might play in this game. But even if he does play, I'm sitting any Broncos quarterback. Melvin Gordon, you can start in this one. Just kind of tamper your expectations a little bit with Phillip Lindsay working back into the mix. But with that being said, Phillip Lindsay is a sit this week. Then we got Tim Patrick. He is a start for me this week if you need a wide receiver. If you don't, then you can sit him. Jerry Jeudy's a sit. Noah Fant looks like he might not play, so he's going to be a sit. Broncos defense is probably a sit unless, they'd be all right like if Hoyer or Stidham plays. Just don't expect too much from them, though. Then we got the Chargers and the Saints. Justin Herbert is kind of like a streaming quarterback option for me at this point. Saints defense is a little banged up. They're pretty good overall. Just kind of tamper your expectations for Herbert this week. Joshua Kelly's a sit for me unless you really need a running back. Justin Jackson's also a sit as well. Saints are very good run defense overall. Keenan Allen's a start. Mike Williams is a sit. I know he's been injured. He might miss this one as well. Hunter Henry's a start. Chargers defense is probably going to be a sit this week. And then on the Saints side, you can start Drew Brees. Latavius Murray is probably going to be a sit in this one. Alvin Kamara is a start. Michael Thomas, if he plays, you're going to start him. Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith. If Michael Thomas doesn't play, I think you can play Traquan Smith. I still don't trust Emmanuel Sanders at all at this point, so he's going to be a sit for me as well. And Jared Cook's banged up, might not play. He's a sit for me either way in this one. And then the Saints defense, you could probably play him if you need to, but you might have a better option out there. Then we got the Titans and the Bills. This is a game, it might not happen. It just depends on the whole Titans situation with all their positive tests. So this is a game, it's probably going to be played on Tuesday night if it happens. But just be aware that this game might not happen. If you have players that are playing in this game, you might want to find a pivot option. If you're in a league where your commissioner allows you to pick an alternative player if this game does end up happening, make sure you have guys available for that option as well. Titans side, we got Ryan Tannehill. I'm going to sit him. Bills defense is decent. And just with everything going on in this game, it's just too hard to predict. Derrick Henry, you're going to start him if this game happens. If not, then obviously you need to find a pivot option. Just make sure you have a pivot option available. A.J. Brown's going to be a sit for me in this game either way. I know Humphreys and Davis both tested positive, so Brown's kind of like the last guy to feed. He's coming off a concerning injury at least, so I wouldn't expect too much from him back in game one. Jonnu Smith, you can start. Just make sure you have a pivot option at tight end just in case this game doesn't play. Then we got Titans defense. They're going to be a sit. On the Bills side, Josh Allen's a start. Like I said, if this game doesn't play, just make sure you have a pivot option. Singletary, I do like this week. We'll see if Moss comes back. If Moss comes back, then Singletary is more of a flex play. If Moss doesn't come back, Singletary is a solid running back too. Stephon Diggs is a start. Most of the other Bills receivers for me are sits. They're all just kind of getting a little bit of volume. Nobody's really standing out otherwise at this point. Dawson Knox is a sit. Bills defense, they could be a start in this one. You probably don't want to risk it, honestly, though. I will say I did mess up the one slide. I still got the Browns and the Cowboys from last week, but this is actually the Browns and the Colts, so I'm going to go through it real quick. So on the Browns side, you got Baker Mayfield. He's going to be a sit against the good Colts defense. Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson are going to be the running backs in this one. Kareem Hunt's an obvious start for me. Dearness Johnson's probably somebody you could play like in a standard format if you're really running back needy team. Maybe you lost Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, people like that. If you need to play him, you can. Just tamper your expectations for him. Odell Beckham is a start for me this week. Tamper your expectations. He's probably not going to be as good as last week. Landry's kind of like a borderline start-sit guy. If you need somebody, you can play him. If not, you don't play him. Hooper's going to be a sit for me. Browns defense is going to be a sit as well. And then on the Colts side, we got Phillip Rivers is going to be a sit. And then Jonathan Taylor is going to be a start. Nyheim Hines, Jordan Wilkins, they're both going to be sits. And then we got T.Y. Hilton's a sit for me until he does anything. And then Zach Pascal's a sit as well. I don't expect too much from him this week. And then we got the trio of Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, and Mo Alley-Cox. I know so many people out there are hyping up Mo Alley-Cox. He had the third most snaps out of all their tight ends last week. He only saw 2 targets. Frank Wright and his staff obviously love Trey Burton for some reason. Do not start any of these guys. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the game that Trey Burton comes out, catches 5 passes and 70 yards and like a touchdown. Like, that would not surprise me at all, but he's not somebody you can start. And like, if you're going out there and getting Mo Alley-Cox, you're just hoping he gets that touchdown again. It's just too risky. There's better options out there at tight end. Just keep those in mind. The Colts defense, you could probably play a Colts defense in this one. They're decent. If you got a better option, you can play the better option, but if you don't, you don't. But with that being said, these are the other 14 remaining matchups for the week. Like I said, just keep in mind that some of these teams have had positive tests. They could affect the games, and just make sure you have viable pivot options available to you in your leagues. Hope you guys all enjoyed this. Hope it gave you a little bit more insight into the matchups. If you guys have any questions at all, start sit. I'll be posting again on the Fantasy Football discussion page on Facebook. If you got any other start sit questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments here. You can reach out to me at CoachCraigSports@gmail.com. You can also reach out to me on the Coach Craig Sports Facebook page or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. Like I said, I'll be answering a lot of questions for you guys this week. We will be doing a live stream on Sunday morning at 11:30. And like I said in yesterday's video, it looks like we'll be having Matt on at some point, whether today or tomorrow, to talk about his DFS picks for the week as well. But with that being said, if you guys liked and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports. I want this channel to be not just about me, but about you guys, helping you guys out with your fantasy football teams, helping you guys learn and understand more of the nuances of fantasy football, and making it a more enjoyable overall experience for you. And then also, if you are a new or current subscriber who hasn't already done so, please be sure to hit that little notification bell down below. It lets you know every single time that I do post up a video. Like I've been saying, I post up about 5 videos a week. I also write up usually 1 article a week and contribute my start sits to the Podtastic Network, our fantasy team over there that we got. If you guys aren't familiar with that work, just be sure to check the link I got down in the description below. But with that being said, that's all I got for this video. Hopefully you guys found this information useful. Hopefully you can apply some of it to your teams in fantasy football for week 5. And with that being said, have a great rest of your day.